All right, you guys ready for modern performance and a vintage package? Well, that's what this video is all about. Hey everybody, it's Bo with X's 4x4 and we build badass 4x4s. Well, ever since the Jeep Wrangler came out in 2018, all anybody has ever wanted was an 8-speed transmission. They found that the 3.6 Pentastar wasn't exactly as bad as what everybody thought it was when it was coupled with the right transmission, the 8-speed. It allowed the engine to stay in the power band longer and actually show everybody how much power it had. Well, it was no different whenever it was coupled with the 392 engine. Even better, right? We were doing Hemi conversions for so long with the 5-speed NAG1 transmission. Great conversion, very reliable, very strong, very dependable engine. It just worked really well in the JK platform. But when the 8-speed transmission came along, that's all anybody wanted. In fact, I could say for 100% certainty that anytime I get phone calls about V8 conversions in their Jeeps, the biggest question that comes up is, can you do it with the 8-speed? And for the longest time, the answer was no, and that was super disappointing. Well, technology's come a long way in the last couple of years, and now we have a super reliable package to put in the JK platform that not only puts the 392 in there, but also the 8-speed transmission. So let's take a closer look. Well, at first glance, when we open the hood on this thing, you're not gonna really notice anything much different than you would if this had a 5-speed transmission in it, whether it's a NAG1 or a 545 RFE transmission or a 65. You wouldn't notice much difference up here. It looks just like any other Hemi conversion that we do. OEM, right? You know, you got your intake over here, your computer's bolted on the back side, one module. Yeah, you're really not going to notice anything out here. It's only when you get on the interior that you're going to notice the Challenger shifter, which that's going to be a shift by wire, drive-by, whatever you want to call it. There's no cables attached to it. Now, some of you guys might not like that, but in the 21st century, we're going to have to make some sacrifices in order to get these cool performance adders. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would somebody spend this much money on an old JK like this? It's not cheap to do a Hemi 8-speed conversion. In fact, it's north of $40,000 to put that in here. Plus, this customer went ahead and added Curry Dana 60 axles in here, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that's a lot of money to pour into an old Jeep like that, right? Well, it all comes down to the personal interest of the customer. Maybe this guy's had this Jeep for a long time. I mean, this is a Gen 1 JK. I don't remember the exact year model of it, but if it's a 2007, we're talking about 15 years. And if he's the original owner of this Jeep, that's 15 years of memories that maybe he just doesn't want to let go of. But he wants the modern performance of the 392 Wrangler. I mean, when you build the suspension right on these things and you install it correctly, like we do, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get the modern performance, but you're going to get to keep your old sentimental memories that you have in this vehicle and get another 15 years out of it. So rather than go spend $80,000 on a new 392 Wrangler to start all over with, he's dumping about half of that into this, and he gets to keep all the sentimental value that he had before. Now, I mean, that's a lot to take on, but remember, this thing had the 3.8 V6 in it before, which running 37-inch tires and a lot of gear in this thing, you might as well be on a pedal bike. They just had no power, right? So this thing has all the power and performance of, you know, of a brand new Jeep. I mean, it basically is a brand new Jeep at this point. When the people ask that question, that's why you do it. You won't want to get rid of your Jeep. You want to spend half the amount of money and just get the luxury of what every new Jeep has. You know, except for the interior accoutrements that you get, but 6 in one half, it doesn't in the other. Now, a lot of you guys are probably going to ask me,
what's the miles per gallon?
I could say with certainty that if I was in, you know, any other Jeep 392 conversion that was more modern, where we already had the 8-speed in it, or we were adding a upgraded 8-speed to their JL or JT, I always got 12.5 to 13.5, 14 miles to the gallon, depending on tire size and the way you drive it. Some people get better mileage, but I'm not that guy. I like to hear the Hemi in it.
Whenever I start it up.
And whenever I drive around.
Fuel mileage isn't exactly the priority whenever we're concerned about the 8-speed transmission. Really what we're looking for is how do we maintain that performance? Now, if you were driving a 392 conversion with the 5-speed transmission, you would notice every time it shifted gears, say you're going from third to fourth, fourth to fifth, you notice a dramatic decrease in power as your RPMs drop every time you shift. That's what we're talking about with the 8-speed. Every time it shifts, there's such a small change in RPMs that the engine is actually able to stay in the power band. So you don't get that sluggish feeling every time you shift gears, like you're trying to catch back up with everything else on the interstate when you shift. You're not gonna have that problem here. In fact, this setup is so smooth, you hardly notice it shifting at all. In fact, if it wasn't for the audible sound of the RPMs changing from underneath the hood, you wouldn't even notice it. It's that good. I mean, the guys at Dakota Custom have these things tuned so good that you're not gonna wanna drive anything else. Now, with all that added performance, the customer wasn't gonna drive around on stock axles. Not that you can't do it, but that's a time bomb. And he knew that. So in this case, he upgraded the axles to the Curry Dana 60s that retain the stock outers. So what's nice about this is, if you're gonna be running 35-inch tires, 37-inch tires, and you got this big power underneath the hood, you definitely want a little bit of insurance by upgrading to those Dana 60 axles. But you don't want to have to buy new 8-lug wheels to go along with it. You can keep what you already had on there, which is exactly what this customer did. So we just added the strength and reliability of Dana 60s while keeping the functionality of the stock outers. So as you can see down here, they fit really well. And for the price point, you can't beat it. With the tie rod that allows you to use these axles, we're talking about $13,000. I mean, the next closest thing to that's probably going to be close to $18,000, if not more. And then you got to buy, 8-lug wheels, and you got to move them over to the 8-lug wheels, and yada yada. There's always so much stuff that you got to do. Now, you're always going to make drive shaft modifications no matter what axle you put in there. But in this case, that was a slight change, and the customer is able to affordably upgrade his axles to match his drivetrain without breaking the bank. Now you can also see in here, he put the off-road only sway lock that's actuated on demand by a switch system inside the cab, which that's cool too. So now he's basically got a really high performing Rubicon, well, beyond Rubicon actually. I think this customer did right. He picked all the right parts to really make this Jeep as reliable as he can when he goes off-road while having the added performance of the Hemi package underneath the hood. All right, guys, there's not much more I can say about this. It's just awesome and it works. It's super smooth. I love it. And I can't wait to do more of these for you guys. So when you're ready, hit me up. And if you want more videos about off-roading and other cool stuff, click here.